Thanks for joining us for the history of our camper van. This video is a combination of our van build and a present-day van tour. We bought the Promaster 2500 new in December of 2019 with the intention of doing the build in 2021. Then came COVID, and since we were staying home anyway, we moved the build up and began in April of 2020. We were so consumed with just getting materials, I never gave any thought to video the process. That said, there are many still images in the video from the initial build. If you want any more information, my email is in the comments below. Our final design required a shower and a through-floor drain. As the Promaster is a unibody product, the floor drain had to clear all structural members. The shower pan drain defined the shower location and all subsequent module sizes and locations. After installing the shower pan and enclosure, hot and cold piping and fixtures were installed. With my background in aviation and truck body fabrication, we knew structural aluminum modules were going to be our choice. Our thanks to George at Humble Road for all the YouTube information. It really helped with the design process. So there's a great deal of discussion out there about van life heaters. You have the very inexpensive Chinese version. You have the Webasto and then Espar. And Espar and Webasto seem to be almost carbon copies to me. But at the time we started the project, I was doing business with Espar of Michigan, and it just was a convenient place for me to go and very good information from them. So this particular version is gasoline powered, and it pulls fuel right out of the Promaster auxiliary fuel tap. And then there's a fully programmable thermostat right here that's too complicated for us to figure out how to use, but it's 4 pushes of the button to turn it on and 4 pushes of the button to turn it off, and the temperature is set. It's I think 72 degrees. But man, when you use it, you know, you'll never get there. It takes a tremendous amount of heat in this tin can, and you know, we can get to 65 when it's really cold out, you know, in the low 30s, and that's good enough for us. So overall, very happy with it. It's kind of a spooky machine, though. I think it goes through cleaning phases and self-tests, so it's not like the simple Webasto or the Chinese one. It's just got a on-off switch and a rheostat. But quite happy with it, and look forward to years of trouble-free service. Though it is worth mentioning that above 9,000 feet it becomes very unhappy. The air is just too thin for the proper combustion. So, and they advertise that. It's in the instructions, so no surprises there. We fabricated a distribution manifold for the Espar unit. There are 4 heat zones in the van: the bed area, kitchen floor, a shower room for drying damp clothes, and forward to the swivel seats. So while we're still back here in the settee area, we incorporated most of the systems either in the garage and or under the settee. And this is on the right hand side. This is basically the water central station, and inside here we have, firstly, this is our intake water filter. So all the water is filtered that goes into the tanks before it gets there. This is a secondary filter that filters everything that comes out of the tank before it's used. There's an accumulator to help the water pump live longer. Way down in the bottom there is the main water pump. We also carry a spare that has the quick disconnect wiring already set up with it. We're going on our 3rd year and doesn't seem to be any problems. Then in the very bottom is an isotherm hot water heater, and because the Promaster, when it's in a passenger, like a bus configuration, there's provisions for a rear heater core. So what we did is we tapped into the engine coolant. These are used in boats quite often for hot water heaters. So we've got engine coolant that comes back here, and while we drive, warms the hot water. Takes it probably an hour of driving to get it up to temperature. It's extremely hot, so there's a regulator straight down here that mixes cold with the hot, so you keep from scalding yourself. Then it also has a 750 watt heating element in it, so if you're shore power or campground power, you can use the electricity over many days, and it'll keep the water warm. And there's nothing better than having a hot shower in van life. Okay, before we get too much further along, I wanted to back up just a minute and talk a little bit about the water system. We just showed you the video of the hot water heater and the pump and the filters and so forth. The freshwater system consists of two 20-gallon plastic tanks. One is a wheel mount over the right-hand rear wheel. The other is mounted underneath our freezer in the center of the garage area. And we've got 2 fill points. Both tanks need to be pressure filled. In other words, you can't pour in from gravity. You've got to have a hose and a fitting and so forth. And it has not been an issue. We've only found one campground that just had a 5/8 hose end, and I had a quick connect fitting I just put on it, took care of it. So 40 gallons on board works out very well for us. And then that is complemented with a 17-gallon gray water tank. Also worth noting is that the imaging of the filters might have showed them rather buried, but everything is easily serviced from the garage area. And since I'm the guy that has to do the servicing when we were doing the design work, a lot of thought was given to the service and repairability, after the fact. So next up is going to be the electrical system, and what we did is we installed a Nations 280 amp secondary alternator, engine driven, standalone. And on the electrical system, the entire camper electrical in no way touches or talks to the Promaster electrical system. And while I know there's a lot of great battery to battery chargers out on the market, I just didn't want the potential, for issues. I really had very little experience with the Promaster once we started, and didn't know how sensitive body control modules and voltages and so forth would be. So that said, standalone alternator, standalone batteries, nothing talks to each other. The batteries, we have 6 100 amp hour Battleborn. I'm sitting on 3 of them, and then 3 of them are adjacent in the garage that are stacked vertically. It was quite a challenge actually to get them all to fit, but and to that end also, once we got them all in, I was having trouble charging at the rate we thought we were going to. And because of the lithium, Nations has a Balmar voltage regulator that was set up for that. And the voltage sense line, the way it came from the factory, picks up right off the alternator. And what we found is we had a 1 volt drop because of the distance to the batteries. That was pretty much the working range of the lithium anyway. So I had to run a secondary dedicated sense wire from the alternator to the main positive bus. Once we did that, it's just amazing. We charge at about 15% total capacity per hour while driving, and seldom are we below 70%, if we're, quote, off grid. So that's worked out very well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and access the electrical area just to show you the componentry, and we'll move on from there. And now we have arrived at the elusive garage. I'm going to go ahead and take out all the bikes and the boards and the mats and the clothes and everything else, and we'll have a good shot at the electrical system. Now that the garage has been emptied, we've got a fighting chance of looking at the electrical system. Behind this white partition are 3 Battle-Born batteries stacked vertically, and then, as seen in the previous video, actually I'm going to turn off the battery charger because the cooling fan's noisy. Underneath the settee are the other 3, so that's a total of 6 100 amp hour Battle-Born lithium batteries. They feed through a variety of circuit breakers and end up here at the AIMS inverter. It's a 5,000 watt pure sine wave, and that ties into the panel distribution here, which switches from inverter AC or shore power when we're plugged in. This is our electrical bay in the garage. Starting with the AC power distribution circuit breaker panel, which is fed from the shore power / inverter power distribution. This is a auto switch. Here you have a 5,000 watt pure sine wave inverter. Above it is I believe it's a 45 amp battery charger that for shore power will recharge the lithium batteries. This is the first of 4 AC fuse blocks. You'll notice that everything is marked, all the features and functions. This was added, I ran out of fuses, can you imagine, as the build progresses. So water transfer pump, garage light, and the bed air conditioning, for that matter, was put in later. I talked earlier in the video that the camper electrical system and the Promaster electrical system itself are completely separate. Well, that's almost true, in as much as right here there is a tie point with that'll handle about 30 amps. So if some catastrophe happened, we'd be able to use the Promaster battery to power the say lights or a water pump, something low current. Also mentioned earlier that all of the appliances that draw any kind of current, 8, 10, 12 amps, we went ahead and installed a bank of relays here. And the switches that control the relays, for instance, to turn the refrigerator, freezer, water pump on and off, they're simply grounding switches. So there isn't a tremendous amount of hot wires, as it were, running through all the chases. They're again ground side switched, and it made wiring a lot simpler. Also in the electrical bay is a series of switches. This one, far left, operates the water transfer pump. There is an LED light that in the garage itself, which works really well at night. And then this switch here allows us to turn the battery charger on and off while on shore power. Primarily because at night the cooling fan on the battery charger is quite loud. So while we're plugged into shore power, normally the battery charger would run automatically until the bank was fully charged. But during that time, you're going to hear the cooling fan cycling on and off, and that was just unacceptable for most of us. Other item while we're here is our air compressor. You remember that the air compressor tank is mounted up in the battery bay, and here the compressor is available for easy access. There's a quick connect fitting, their standard decoupler for the air hose. Once the settee cushions have been removed and the vertical cover taken off, we can access more of the electrical components. Mounted vertically are a number of items that are used to handle electrical feed circuits coming in and out. Here on the bottom is the shunt for the Blue Sea load meter. There's a circuit breaker for the battery end of the second alternator feed. These are a couple of circuit breakers and fuses for the Espar heater. This is a 50 amp resettable circuit breaker for the 12 volt DC bus and associated fuses. Behind here is the Mamaluk of them all, the 500 amp fuse for the 5000 watt inverter. Another ground cable, and then regrettably I had no other place to mount the hot and cold water feed for the shower, but everything seems to have survived for the last 2.5 years adequately. This is a main disconnect for the camper batteries. It opens the ground on all the lithium ion batteries. Behind this phenolic panel is the top of the 3-stack vertical of the lithium, and then of course inside the cabinet here there are the other 3 lithium batteries. Upon completion of what has become known as Phase 1, we ventured out in search of the fun known as van life. Aside from a forgotten 2-aught ground cable, and yes, we let some smoke out, thank God for Napa in Mammoth, California, all was working as planned. Then, just before leaving for a West Coast trip, while driving on a major city street, a drunk driver ran a stop sign and clipped the front of the van. Hard as I tried, the stock brakes faded as the 8,300-pound van pulled to the curb. While the van was getting a new face and grille, I began investigating better brakes. We found PowerStop makes a complete kit. They're a resin ceramic pad with vented and cross-drilled rotors. Summit Racing had them in stock. Installation in my driveway with just a floor jack and normal hand tools, and I did all 4 hubs in about 6 hours. The caliper mounting bolts are Loctite or similar glue from the factory, and the rears are ratchet only on and off due to clearance issues. These brakes must be burnished at the initial install, and the factory has a little manual that comes with the brakes that tells exactly how they need to be warmed up and heated. We had a 6% mountain road nearby, and a series of moderate stops were made, and there was a bit of smoke at the bottom. If these brakes were installed when the drunk blew the stop sign, I'd have missed them by 2 car lengths at least. There's absolutely no fade. As a matter of fact, the hotter the pads get, the better they grab. That said, be sure to replace the factory brake fluid with some type of ultra temp compatible fluid, lest your pedal will meet the floor mat on that mountain road. It was kind of tricky finding the brake fluid. There's so many different types, and it has to be, I think it's .3, but check the manual, I don't remember. It has to meet the same dot requirement, but there's a variety of aftermarket racing fluids that have a much higher boiling point, and there's no sense to put brakes that can generate all kinds of heat if you don't have the fluid that'll work with them. Anyway, have a look at the images that I've got here, and boy, if you've got a Promaster van and it's heavy, these are a must-have. So we're going to do some real live shots for the van tour composite video. It may be a little windy here. We're on the southern coast of Spain and the Mediterranean, and just going to do a little walk around video here. We'll start with the front. We've got the bull bar, crash bar, whatever you want to call it, the Bambi guard on the front. We've got the OEM fog lights that were installed after the fact, the rigid driving light, And this is the high output version. I'll have to find information on that inside, but it is absolutely the night sun. Unbelievable. The headlights have been converted to all LED. We've got marine docking lights on both the left and right side, which allow us, which gives us good lighting pulling into campgrounds at night when you're trying to read the site numbers. The suspension has been upgraded in the front to Bilstein, actually in the rear too. So let's talk Promaster suspension, shall we? Perhaps somewhere around 50,000 miles, we did a trip to Labrador, Canada. Perhaps the worst roads I've ever driven outside of parts of Asia. When we returned to California and prior to the Europe trip where this video is being put together, I decided to service a suspension. I must admit it was worse than I expected. Both front struts were failed, no gas charge to speak of, holes blown through the boots, etc. We went with Bilstein front and rear, replaced all the strut components except the coil springs. Ground clearance an issue, it was the perfect time to add the Van Compass 1.5" suspension lift. New ball joints were installed as well. Of great surprise when we were done was the alignment. There's only a very minor toe adjustment needed. The Van Compass product corrected camber and caster within the product as advertised. So here's the progression. At 45,000 give or take, we replaced the OE tires with Michelin Edgeless Cross Climate tires. Suspension overhaul complete. Now for the test drive. Night and day. You talk about transforming a cargo van to a touring vehicle. All the body roll is gone. Rebound over bumps, normal. The van's so stable in turns you can actually relax. Wished we had done all these mods when we first bought the vehicle. Bilstein actually in the rear too. There's also an 1.5" lift that was done when the new struts were put in. In addition, we have sumo springs front and rear. And then up on top is the aluminous full-length rack with the side ladder. It's turned out to be a godsend because, you know, we did not want to have a lot of cumbersome storage inside the van. So, you know, our choice was to go up on the roof. You can also see the WeBoost antenna. On the back, we've got additional LED backup lights. And that monstrosity you see there under the van is how we take 220 European and still shore power the van with 110. And here's a shot of our step-up, step-down transformer. Okay, on the back of the van where the center, I guess it was a stoplight used to be, we've gone ahead and fitted another full-time rear view camera that mounts with, I think it's van topper, electric mirror inside. And we still use the original Promaster backup camera for a backup camera. So we have two. The advantage though is that we're able to full-time with the electric rear view mirror. And coming around the side, you can see left and right we've got the bunk windows up on top. The Fiamma, this is the F45S awning, which is really nice in the hot sun. The retractable step, and then finally, and this is a work in progress, was the gray water drain. And see if I can get a good image underneath of the gray water system. We've got 16-gallon gray water. It's not heated, but haven't had an issue with it yet. We use a little antifreeze if necessary. And then we've got the electric drain valve, so we can just flip a switch, drain the gray water. We've got a secondary cap, as well as now carrying a hose underneath. I've only used it once. There's only been one campground where we needed it for gray water removal. And just as you come in from the side door, you'll find the gray tank. What is it? It's Valterra electric drain valve, and then next to it is our retractable step. Here's a particular image that I wanted to show in the video. Everything that we've added to the vehicle has not dropped any lower than the lowest part of the original part of the vehicle. You'll also notice there is quick drain valves. I have here on the transmission, and then you really can't see it. There's one on the engine oil pan. We'll talk about that later. And the last little bit, I wanted to get the forward marker lights up on the top of the cab, which from Promaster are very prone to leak. These were an LED replacement that I believe were bolt-on, and they've got the resistors built in with them, and they've got a really robust foam gasket. So far, no leaks. So the evening has come, and it's time to put the bed into bed mode. And Debbie's helping film, and she's just about to film her finger, like I do all the time. So anyway, bed mode for an almost queen size van life bed. We take three of the four cushions off the dinette, and the 80/20 bed frame glides and slides, pulls out, and three cushions that were in the settee are now becoming the rest of the bed. And sometimes it stays in bed mode all day. Depends how depends on the mode, because we can use the lagoon table to eat. So again, and access to the freezer is limited once we go into the full bed mode. But man, there's so much room, and it's so nice. And I don't mind. But there you have a nearly queen size bed, and it's wonderful. Oh, okay, the step. Part of the whole storage, this is the support for the step, and it handily holds two shoes. That comes out, and this flips over, and it becomes a very usable step to get into the bed. And there is plenty of room. And also worth mentioning, another Max Air fan right over the bed. So we're in Louisiana in the middle of summer, and it's 95 and 95. You know, you don't suffocate. But love the bed, love the utility of it, from couch. Oh, and while we're here, this is a favorite. We can still raise this television mode. Could life get any better? And this is a shot from the back that shows the actuation of the bed. And in a moment, it'll go up. And you can see the pneumatic rams. They're double acting, so they power up as well as down. That puts us in the couch mode, or we can, Debbie, want to lower it part way. So when we're watching TV, we want it elevated a little bit. and or all the way back down. And there's our noisy air compressor. During the initial design, we knew that the bed would have a large footprint. Somebody, knew they wanted a raised backrest in the bed. Lots of geometry to work out, but in the end, we have a 4 configuration bed. Retracted, we have a double bed. Raise the back and you have a couch. Pull the slider and it's a TV lounge. If you lower the back, it's just under a full king. We do sleep north-south, though if one was less than 5'10", say, east-west sleeping would work fine. Well, the video's running a bit long as we've combined both the build and van tour, so we're going to leave it here for now. The next van video will focus on engine and transmission modifications to improve service life and reliability, as well as passenger compartment upgrades. Teaser, check out what this magic switch does. More to come. Thanks for watching. If it had value for you, a like and subscribe would be great.